Welcome, everyone, to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. All past shows are in podcast form. You can find them at ArtistFirst.com. Questions and comments can be sent to DJ at ArtistFirst.com. Now, here they are, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
And here we are, Michael and Margaret Lyons. That's what's called an echo lead. And thank you very much, Scott. And yes, welcome to the Soul of the Everyman, where the points are today being counted double.
Oh.
And only the wisest and most discerning people will get them. Because those people will earn special rewards. Actually, tonight there will be no points awarded. Because we don't want to encourage anybody to put on airs or to in any way feel themselves more important than any other. And it goes along with our topic tonight, which is an interesting one. You came up with this topic, and I thought it was very interesting from the moment you said it. Because the phrase, well, the concept of self-deception is so near and dear to all of our hearts. It's something that we just hug and cuddle up to every day. There's nothing better than your own opinions and how right they are. So the most powerful deception is self-deception, and I think that's so profound because every one of us really holds our own opinion in great regard.
Yes, we do.
And we are more than happy to defend it to the death and to reject any and all attempts to change it, regardless of the facts. And it's one of the most human things possible is to I don't care what you say, you're still wrong. and it kind of dovetails a little bit with some of the things we've been watching in these times. Watching a few videos more than we normally did, and we've been watching a number of videos by Tolle, and actually the graphic we put up in a different way is by another sort of enlightened soul, Pema
Chosen.
And these two very different people with very different viewpoints, though, have hit upon this same, Tolle in many ways, and Pema in other ways, this same sort of nugget, this topic, which is very close to the psyche and soul of humans, which is that we and this means all of us, really love two things. We love our own opinion, and we love to be right about it. And being right about your own opinion to many of us, I'll say all of us, is like as close to you as your heartbeat. Because when somebody tells you you're wrong, there's an immediate, if you're living in sort of an I-centered, egotistic world or egoistic world, there's an immediate rejection. Who do you think you are that you can tell me that I'm wrong? And similarly, whenever there's any kind of an infraction upon what you consider as your little world, something goes wrong, it's those people are out to get me. Those people are whatever they did was so it's wrong, and I can tell you 20 reasons why it's wrong because I know how to do it the right way. I'm the authority of everything in my sphere, and obviously that's not true, but yet we do. It's incredibly seductive and incredibly. It really lies at the root of many, 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 many conflicts in the world. In fact, one of the things we put up a quote always, and we put up Pema's quote, which is the essence of bravery is being without self-deception. But there was another one which said basically the root of all evil is self-deception. And it was Heinlein who made this quote, this observation. People say that the root of all evil is money. No, the root of all evil is self-deception because you are impulsed to do many, many things that you would never do if you weren't trying to prove to everyone else that you're right. and conversely, they're all wrong.
Well, it's imposing your reality over everyone and everything else
Hmm.
that you feel as opposed to your idea of what it should be. So the deception is, it's basic to human nature, because we want to explore things, and then when we begin to figure out stuff, you want to be able to say, well, I figured that out. I've got this body of knowledge, and this is the way it is. And you're correct to a point, because who was it that said, when it comes to being generous and compassionate to people, I'm great. I've got that all down, until somebody else comes in the room.
Yes, those bastards. They ruined my. They're harshing my mellow. But I want to go back to what you just said, because all that, that near and dear to our hearts is all near and dear to one part of our humanness, which is not our being; it's our ego. And that's what Tolle is really talking about, is that this identification of the ego with being right. It's like it's lifeblood, and it doesn't matter what the opinion is, as long as it, once you identify with it, it must be right, because it becomes existential to the ego.
And that's, honestly, that is key to it all. You have to experience your ego to understand what it actually is, and realize that you have to observe your own ego at that point. The ability to experience your ego and then to be able to take a perspective on it is a life work for most people.
Yeah.
Because most of us are too involved in exploring the facets of ego and comfortable in that, unless something makes you uncomfortable. Everything that you thought you knew suddenly is intruded upon by reality. And things shift. What you thought you knew about everyday life and the way it's always supposed to be, you're supposed to wake up, you're supposed to get ready, and then you go off to work, and you work for a period of time, and then you come home, and blah, 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 blah. That whole cycle, and you do that for 5 days out of the week. And then suddenly you're in a whole different paradigm.
Well, two things there, right? Because the ego is a fragile thing. It doesn't like to be contradicted in any of its opinions. It finds those threats to be existential, and it relies upon this endless sense of right. That I, because the ego is all about I, that I am right and everybody else is wrong in order for me to be important and in the right place in the world. Where do bad ideas come from? Bad ideas come from other people. As you said before, I am overwhelming with the milk of human kindness and compassion until someone else enters the room, and then I have to actually deal with you. No, not you.
And this is what we mean by keeping those concepts in a mental framework. You can think about it, and as you think about it, you can do anything when you're thinking about it. But to engage in it and follow through, that is a whole another aspect to being alive down here.
Very interesting there. Maybe you can expound on this. But the ego is a very fragile thing because it doesn't survive well in reality.
Well, it is a part of you. It's not the whole you. It wants you to believe that it's the whole you.
Exactly. But that part of you is like a little. It has it is really the soul of self-deception is your ego, because your ego, when you have to, when you can sit and imagine all the wonderful things, you're a saint in your own mind all the time because you're always right and everyone else is wrong, and you're full of compassion and all these horrible people are not. But this very fragile soap bubble ego, when reality intrudes, any kind of reality is desperately injured and has to fight back for its existence. So it doesn't do well in reality, but yet it is so seductive to us. It's an unusual thing that we have created this very fragile little thing that takes offense at everything in reality, because whenever a reality intrudes, it fights back to reject what is true, what is actually happening.
Well, it has to do with your identity. And if you identify with the ego, then you empower it. So if reality comes in and shows that the ego doesn't know everything, the ego gets frantic because it wants to be in the driver's seat. It likes the attention. Pay attention to me. I mean, my goodness, isn't that the baseline of an ego? Pay attention to me? And everyone has it.
Exactly. But yet, what you said earlier was when reality actually intrudes, the very first thing to collapse, or at least to be injured, is this very fragile ego. Your being state, your heart state, knows about reality, but the ego wants to trump all that.
But the thing is, it is only fragile if it honestly believes it's right all the time.
I like that phrase for two reasons. Honestly and ego in the same sentence, because egos are never honest. And I think that's part of it, is that the ego dishonestly believes it's right all the time and doesn't care.
Well, why would you want to be right all the time? How's that for a question?
It's a great question, because why does the ego want to be right all the time? Because I think the answer, part of the answer, and it's not me coming up with it, it's totally, is that when the ego is shown to be wrong, it also it contradicts with its own existence. It is almost to the point where it damages the existence of ego to be proven wrong. You have to redo the ego, if you will.
So the ego is trying to justify its existence to itself.
All the time.
And it can't accept the fact that it just is. It's got to justify it.
Well, because the part of you that accepts that you just are is your being.
But your ego part, it can't accept that it just is. It is as it has always been.
No. I would say no. I would say that the pitfall of the ego is that it can't deal with reality. Self-deception. Okay, the truth of self-deception, or the basis of self-deception, is that you believe something which is important to you to be right more than it is important to you to be true.
You want it to be true, but unless you have trained yourself to just see things as they are, because that is an exercise in consciousness, is to see things as they are, which was actually the foundation of a lot of scientific analysis. It is what it is. But you don't draw these huge sweeping conclusions from it. You observe it as it is.
Yes. Well, and if we digress in that moment, for a moment, true knowledge, the true seeking of knowledge is supposed to be egoless. If you take people out of it, just say, well, people are egoless or scientists are egoless, they're truly looking, as you just said, putting out their, let's say, a theory, then looking at the facts, the actual discovered phenomena, and saying, does it agree with the theory? Nope. I need a new theory. The ego says, does it agree with my preconception? Nope. Need new facts. So those the science, if you look at it that way, it should be egoless and almost without. Well, I think we said this earlier, but I'll say it now. You said it earlier. That one of the drivers of the ego is that your pride is involved. That there's the human concept of being right. If proven wrong, it damages your pride. You feel as though your essence of existence is being contradicted when you're wrong, if your pride is involved.
Isn't it interesting, then, that you're identifying yourself as pride, a function of pride, which is not who you are, but why? Because when you let's digress a little bit. You look at it and you find out that the reality is not so. The pride comes in because you wanted to be right, which is, you look at something and you go, well, it's either right or wrong. It is or it isn't. But it matters when it becomes personal.
Right. You said it earlier. You've identified yourself. Your own existence has been identified with whether the reality agrees with you or doesn't. And when your existence doesn't agree with reality, you choose your existence rather than reality. That's the ego position.
It depends on the person, I think.
Well, we're in the abstract here. Every individual person,
yes.
and those who practice what you said earlier, which is that if you really go, you don't have to go into Eastern religions. You can really go into science and become an egoless scientist, someone who follows the facts. You could go into criminal law, and say you just follow the facts. And
it's a discipline, because the human being likes to identify with being in that right state. They like being right. And if you look at it, it's like, why is it, if it becomes a compulsion, maybe that's a better way to put it, where you must be right all the time, always, 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 always.
Right, that's the pathology of it.
Okay, and what motivates that?
Well, we can go in that direction. I mean, why do people hold this ego view so near and dear? That's a whole different thing. I think at the end of the day, it is something which is sort of taught to you. You remember we've talked about this several times in the past, where people, instead of saying that I am a being, they say I am an accountant, or I am they identify with an external sort of a chimera or an illusion.
A label.
Well, a label, but it's illusory, whatever it is. And to the extent that thing has power or prestige or is seen to be admirable, these all become imbued with sort of your persona. Your external base, your persona, is who you are. You become more and more identifying yourself with that very ego, very I-centered thing. And then the problem with those things is you age, You are not right all the time. You are always, that persona requires incredible amounts of maintenance to keep up, and as those things, as reality erodes this persona, it erodes, in essence, you identified with it so strongly, it erodes you, and so you end up feeling attacked, literally to your core, because you don't have the sense of being, which is eternal. You have this very ephemeral sense of, I'm this beautiful.
I can be dissipated. I think that's the real fear.
Yes.
Is the fact that something can come in and dissipate this illusion. It goes up in a puff of smoke very easily, and the human ego doesn't want to believe that it can be dissolved that way. How could that be? That I can be dissolved that way? No, that's not even part. And the truth of the matter is, when you realize how ephemeral your thoughts are, or even your emotions, and how illusory your concepts of what you've put together, you've taped together with chewing gum and rubber bands, this concept that you believe is grand, and then reality comes in like the wind, and one little thing snaps and the whole thing falls apart. That feeling is what most people want to run away from, because when an event like that happens, a person feels like they've suddenly dissolved into nothing.
Yes.
Because they have identified with the chewing gum and the rubber bands.
But to go back to our topic, that's all true. What the maintenance part of that, keeping that balloon inflated, the breath you blow into it is the breath of self-deception.
Well, it is, you are extending your life's breath into that expanding illusion, and it takes everything up that you have to maintain it, wherein that is the dissonance that happens. The inner being and the outer being are two different things. And that is the illusion. When dissonance is there, it means that you are not made of a solid being state. You have, like the balloon, different levels of density.
Well, and you could be popped very easily.
Yes. All you need is a hole.
All you need is a hole. So this thing, which we call, let's say, an ego, requires, by its very nature, self-deception. In other words, you need to deny reality, and you need to deny even the idea that this is not real, that this is not you. This illusory, ego-driven self that you put up. Let's say it's your Facebook profile, for just to pick something out of a hat, requires tremendous amounts of maintenance. And then what is it existential to it are two things. One is, of course, that somebody would contradict you. That draws the existential fire right away. And then it's something that is impersonal, that reality contradicts you, that you, as your chimera, whatever it is, that you're eternally youthful and eternally right and eternally, whatever, all these things that you've put up, this illusory you, reality, the slings and arrows of actual reality come in and knock that out. And rather than embrace reality and say, yes, I'm getting older, I'm getting, I am often wrong, I'm sometimes right, all these beautiful life lessons which do nothing to the actual being and except educate and show you that the eternity of life is to be embraced. Instead, they become these sort of missiles that punch holes in the balloon and let the air out. you know, and you have to continually be patching them. Those patches, whether they're patches of anger, you know, and lashing out to somebody, or you know, patching it up with cosmetics or surgery to keep yourself looking eternally youthful, are the essence and soul, or actually the outer appearances of all the essence and soul of self-deception. You have to kind of keep on pushing in there, and I think, you know, Pamela's take on this, her quote, "The essence of bravery," is so key, and I think we'll get into that a little bit more in the next half hour. But just see, right now, the essence of bravery means that the other way is not brave. You know, it's not a brave thing to have this chimera. It's actually hiding. You know,
well, the face that you've decided that this is how you will look. This is what I'm presenting. And because I'm presenting this face, it means that my reality works in a certain way.
You reject all, you know, the old "I reject your reality and substitute my own." You reject everything else that doesn't fit your conceptual, ego-driven, you know, illusion, because that all wounds it. That all puts holes in it, and it's not brave to spend your life keeping up appearances, keeping up a lie. The bravery that she's talking about here is to accept that that you are a small, yet eternal, but yet a small part of a very vast universe. that reality and the people all around you are just as valid as you, and that to look at things clearly and to accept that I am sometimes right, sometimes not, that I am sometimes ugly and sometimes uglier.
But that is the essence of saying to yourself, it's okay. All right, and that is something that I do remember Pema Children was talking about.
Well, you went and saw her.
She's a very interesting person. But yeah, that was one of the core concepts that she was presenting, is that it's okay when things go wrong, little by little, it comes back into a balanced form, and it's okay. To give yourself permission to say, it's okay that it didn't work out the way I thought. Because you have to accept that when things go wrong, it's okay. But if you don't think so, if you think that, well, I've got to do something to it, then that's when things start spinning at a higher rate. But if you're able to, in that moment, say, no, there is a balance point that it will come back to. It's all right. You give permission for things to go awry from your notion of what should be.
Yes, and I think that is the essence of courage. And I would even say that that's the first step, is giving permission, and then the second step beyond that is to realize that you don't even have to give permission. You just have to give yourself permission to accept that you don't control everything. You
have to be able to take a step out from your ego, and your ego is saying it's not okay, it's not okay, it's not okay. So
it's okay. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's take a little break and go back to the studio for a couple of minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit more about self-deception.
Rick Riordan fans, love mythology with plenty of action and humor? Destroyer's Blood is for you. The new fantasy novel by award-winning author Michael Lines is book 1 of the adventures of Deucalion, the Blood series. Follow Dev and his magic sword Betrayer as they are suddenly attacked and forced to return to Olympus to fight in a war they want no part in. The world of men and gods is about to be destroyed by Zeus's ancient foe, and only Dev and Trey can stop him. The conflict never stops, and the amazing twist will have you on the edge of your seat. Act now while the ebook is on sale for only 99 cents. Destroyer's Blood is available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. And while you're there, get the free prequel, It's in the Blood, available for a limited time. The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lyons, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere.
The Timeless Esoterica radio program with Dr. Bruce is broadcast on the fourth Monday of every month at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern, on ArtistFirst.com. We explore topics including the paranormal, alien life, mysteries, conspiracies, hidden history, oddities, and much more. Each show will feature a special guest with exciting and thought-provoking discussion. Always keep an open mind, an open heart, live forever, and remember Dr. Bruce believes in you.
The wait is over. First Blood, Book 2 of the Blood series is out. Your favorite bad boy thief Dev is back, and the beautiful and deadly Trey is right there with him. She is sharp, sexy, and full of surprises. Their adventures continue as a new power arises to threaten the world. The heart of creation is under attack, and time is definitely not on their side as they battle against their enemies' undead hordes. Can they unlock the hidden power that can defeat him, or will his forces draw first blood? Get all 3 installments in the series. Book 0, It's in the Blood. Book 1, Destroyer's Blood, and the new release, Book 2, First Blood, today. Available in ebook and paperback format on Amazon, Kobo, Apple, and most other fine e-tailers.
Thanks for joining us on The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Back to your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you very much, D-Man. And we had a nice little break, and we practiced no self-deception during the break that you know of. Well, and this is it's a fascinating topic, but I think let's pivot a little bit and talk a little bit about the other side. But you mentioned the time that you spent, or rather, you went and saw Pema Chodron, and maybe a little background on her in case anyone doesn't know who she is.
Oh, well, she is an American by birth, but she studied she's in a Buddhist monastery, and she is a Buddhist monk. And she is fascinating because she was just as they do, because the method of teaching is they don't necessarily stand up in front and do a lecture. Many times it's discourse. So a student may have a question, and then they present it to their master, and then the master elaborates on the questions. And that was the way she had done things. She did speak a little bit as a general conversation, and then the questions opened up. So
But you mentioned one specific thing where she was saying, that you at least, in essence, accept or allow that things, it's okay. And this is the anti-ego, if you will, but the idea that it's okay.
Yes. Well, that is the foundation of, if you're part of a monastic group, you are given everyday chores. Everyone has a list of things that they have to do, and you may not want to do them, but you realize that this is your assignment. And things don't always turn out the way you want them to, because that's what life does. And gauging your reaction, because that whole group was consciously trying to engage in that enlightenment state of mind. So when they're in meditation and something happens, there would be questions of, well, what happens when, you're sitting and then suddenly, is enlightenment something that just comes by itself, or can you work your way to it, or is there and it all has to do with being able to step aside from your ego and controlling things. So it was a fascinating talk.
Yeah, and this quote of hers, and there's another one that we didn't bring in, which by Plato, which is basically saying that again, sort of the greatest deception is self-deception. We reference that a little bit in the text of our post. This idea of self-deception, which in essence inflates the ego and reinforces the ego, gives the ego its lifeblood, if you will. It is completely antithetical to what in this philosophy and many, which basically say that the way to become, if you will, enlightened, but just become sane, is to constantly deflate the ego. In essence, draw back and say, no, this is a falsehood. And when reality intrudes, you have to just say, well, you can still certainly say, I would like to do X. I want to accomplish a task. But when reality intrudes, you wanted to plant your flowers and it started to rain, or as we've been having recently, snow in May. You wanted to plant your flowers and it snowed. The ego says, oh, the snow is against me. It's terrible. I'm going to complain about it. I'm going to be the victim here. I want everyone to understand how horrible everything is, and nothing will ever be right until the snow is gone. And the deflation of the ego would be to say, well, we'll plant flowers tomorrow. It's fine. It didn't work out. I accept that I can't change the weather, nor should I even think about wanting to change the weather. It's a falsehood to, in essence, put your plan for the day as the reason for living the day. The reason for living today, living the moment, is the moment itself. It has the ego part of it is the deception part of it.
Right. Well, it's again, you're building this structure of what you think your reality is. And it's mostly because it makes you feel safe.
Yes.
You're trying to put together something that you feel that, okay, I've got a handle on this. It's predictable. I can handle. And the minute one thing comes in and shows you that it doesn't work that way, there's a lot of internal screaming that goes on. It's like, no, it's got to be this way. Because invalidating this piece of my reality, there's a danger that the whole structure I just made is false. And if that's the case, then who am I?
Yes, it cuts so instant, like we said about a balloon being popped, it goes instantly to the core.
Who am I? And suddenly this fear of, well, I don't know who I am.
Right.
Which is a fascinating thought. It's like, what do you mean? I don't know who I am.
The ego is often referred to as something like a bubble. as something that's full of hot. When you say somebody's egotistical, you say
Right.
they're full of hot air.
Right.
So language is wonderful in its insight because people who are puffed up with ego or they're full of hot air are also very easily popped or deflated.
They can be deflated, yeah.
And when you pop somebody's ego bubble, what comes out is a blast of hot air, usually a lot of anger and a lot of gesticulating and wildly going on because you trigger them at a basic survival fear level.
Yeah, it's usually fear first. And then it shifts over into, at least what I've seen, is that you pop that bubble and fear is at its foundation or core, but then there's an instant of sadness and then anger.
Yes, and that's classic.
Mm-hmm. And when you see that, it's just realizing that this person's concept of themselves is so small. Something has told them that they are less than. So they use the ego to build this up to almost convince themselves that they're not this little thing that can be pushed aside.
Yes.
And the truth of the matter is you are not something to be thrown away. You are important, but you don't need the ego to assert that. Maybe that's the misperception, is that you've been trained to turn to your ego to assert your being.
Your importance.
Just that you have a right to be here. But when your heart tells you, yes, you have every right to be here, that can't be shaken by anything. But if it's the ego telling you, it's all done on a surface level. It's outward forms instead of that internal burning of understanding that you exist and you are important because you are I am.
You've hit the nail as in most shows right on the head exactly perfectly. The ego is a very fragile thing. But the I am is a immovable rock,
Mm-hmm.
And to the extent that you identify with the ego, you feel insecure, and all the puffing is to hold up this insecure wall. Instead of at the heart level, when you see it, sometimes we watch these these singing competition shows and things. They're very entertaining, but when people reach a core level, they're unshakable, and you instantly, without ever knowing these people, you have an instant sort of identification, because you can sense that the core level of humanity, the being level of humanity, is unshakable. But yet, for some reason, we are easily deceived, or we easily deceive ourselves that that's not important. And the important thing is to grasp onto these external things, youth, or money, or power, or whatever these things are. And all that ephemeral stuff requires tremendous amounts of puffing to keep it open, keep it up, keep it up, keep it up, keep it up. And then something comes along and very simply, almost effortlessly pops it. And it just drives people all the way down into this sort of screaming, who am I? You are who you are, but you have to get away from these ego bubbles.
Well, it's not to identify only with all the surface things, because at your core, your I am, when you touch into that, it is something that speaks heart to heart. You will always, it doesn't matter what even the name of the people who are there listening to you or listening to, say, the singing. You know when your heart is engaged with the other person, because suddenly your emotion or your memory is triggered by an event, something. It's like, this is an experience that is human.
Mm.
The love that this person feels is the love that I have felt. And because you both resonate to that incredible frequency, heartfelt, it just expands and amplifies on its own. It doesn't need hot air.
Mm.
It is.
Mm. Exactly. And I'm reminded in many ways of sometimes these, again, they're very illustrative when you see people who put themselves out there and they have the external appearance doesn't jive with the internal being.
Right.
And yet they're almost immediately, and we all do this, and it's not really on topic, we almost immediately judge by the external appearance. Oh, this one's going to be terrible, this one's going to be this is going to be that. And so there's this sort of ego war. The self-deception of ego is trying to almost give a illusion that I'm worthy enough to bring forth what's inside, and then everyone else won't judge me as long as I give them a worthy enough. I'll dress in the nicest suit, I'll wear the nice watch, I'll do all the, so I'm look worthy enough on the outside for them to then give me a chance to show the inside. Yet the bravest ones are those who come in front of you with nothing worthy on the outside.
Mm-hmm. They're not projecting an illusion. They've come to share who they are.
Right, and often there's a lot of fear there because they can feel they're being judged, and yet you say, all right, go ahead, I'll give you a chance. And then if they tap into the I am, the being state, then all that judgment just, it's gone, it's wiped out, because the heart of everyone, all of us, all of our human hearts recognizes when someone opens up their true essence. And all the illusions, the interesting thing about these illusions is we do throw them away at times of true connection. And I think we understand that they're illusions, and it's a game that people play. I mean, some people play it so hard that they don't understand that they've gone too far away from the real. But some people are playing it almost as a sort of a currency of, look who I am, look who I am, look who I am. And then when you truly broom it, when somebody comes out with their true self and it resonates, none of it matters anymore. And you see on people's faces an almost very satisfied connection, because they're like, this is the real, this is truth, and I love that. And and all of a sudden the boundaries are broken down, and these people who you wouldn't think have the sort of approachability, they put these barriers up. I'm a celebrity, I'm this, I'm that, the other thing. They'll truly go down to the human level of either opening their arms and hugging or really connecting, because they broke that. When you open up the heart, the ego is broomed and the connection is there, and all of a sudden you see that human as the eternal worthy essence inside, the I am, which is in all of us. And at that connection level, you say, this spark talks to mine, and I feel related to them. I feel honored by them. We talked about honor last week or the week before, but that level, once you broom the ego, becomes so much more significant. It is the essence of bravery to live without self-deception, but it's also the essence of humanity to live without self-deception. If you really come down to the human level, self-deception goes out the window almost immediately when crisis hits, right?
Yeah, we value greatly when someone is able to bridge the gap their heart to your heart.
Mm.
And they either speak or sing or somehow draw forth from your own heart this incredible response.
Mm.
And it's a similar frequency from everyone. I hesitate to call it a uniform response that way, but it is a human response that has slight variations from human to human, but the heart response is there, and it cannot be denied. And you appreciate when someone was able to cut through the illusion, and suddenly you're on real footing where the communication is clear, pristine, and precise, and vast. That's when the communication becomes vast. When it's a heart-to-heart, all this other stuff falls away because suddenly you are met on multiple levels simultaneously.
Right.
And it's an amazing experience. And you just appreciate the fact it happened.
Yes, and then it does a couple things. As you said, it breaks down these artificial barriers. And you see it in many ways. Music is a wonderful way, but you see it in this, we often talk about the compassion of a Mother Teresa, where she's seeing the humanity in those whose illusory outsides say, I am totally unworthy of all things, of all consideration. I shouldn't even exist. And yet at the heart level, they are completely worthy. The I am is the same. And when you see someone extend themselves, the resonance comes back as strong as though there's no difference at that level. Circumstance doesn't mean anything. Illusion doesn't mean anything. Power means nothing. Money, it's all at that level. You connect there, and even those who observe and aren't either the one who's helped or the one who's doing the helping, they see the interaction, they feel the worthiness of both sides.
Yeah. When she would speak, Mother Teresa would speak of her experience, and many times it is just taking a beggar off the street who's dying, and like just the body in the gutter but still alive. And she would reach down and enfold them and bring them to her, the place where her nursing facility.
Yeah, the little Sisters of the Poor or whatever it was, Sisters of Calcutta. Excuse me.
And bring this person to a bed. And she spoke of this man just turning to her, saying, thank you. Thank you for letting me die as a human being and not as a dog.
Yes.
And that connection where the heart is saying, I am human. And I deserve dignity as a human. Coming into that and having, she provided the ability to mirror back that, yes, you are. And you are worth it.
And in that in that moment, the circumstances don't matter. The who's dying and who's not. In the moment of connection through let's say music, which is from the heart, the circumstances don't matter. That you have bazillions of dollars and this one is poor as a church mouse. That you have all these illusory puffery puffs and they don't, because the connection at the heart level brooms all this surface stuff and shows us the true reality, shows us the actual reality. That bravery.
It dissolves all of the structures.
Right. The self-deception is more than just the self-deception. It's truly a a false narrative. It's a false reality. And popping it can feel existentially frightening. But if you get past that, if you take your courage in hand, you find that all that stuff means nothing. At the true level of humanity, the huffery and the puffery and all the stuff, being right and never being wrong and never being poor and never being ugly, and all that is gone. And it takes the bravery part is that you feel like that's important to you. Once you realize that it's not, you don't need the bravery anymore. You just need to be a being.
Right.
You need to be instead of being an I.
Right. Yes. Being brave means that you are identifying with the part of you that never dies. And maybe that's the fear that the ego has, that it understands that it is illusory and it does die.
Yes.
But it doesn't understand what transition is.
Oftentimes people refer to enlightenment as the death of the ego, because the ego really struggles against death. It really feels to itself that it's being destroyed, as you said, being dissipated, being turned into nothingness, being diminished, as Tolle says. But the soul of the everyman, see how I work that in? The soul of the everyman is eternal, and it is ubiquitous, and it is where we do really connect. And take courage, let the puffery go, and realize that your being doesn't care about reality. The being is the reality.
Your being is the reality. And we have reached the end of our hour.
I deny everything.
I'm
I'm Michael Lyons.
And I'm Mark. And thank you for listening.